People, we're on the air. Remember how this works, Ben. You not only have to give the answer, you have to give why is that on our study guide for the 40s and 50s, otherwise known as the Truman Eisenhower administrations. Ready? Annie, you're up first. Area of French control. What was that whole area in Southeast Asia where the French had, because they had the empire, because you had all these European countries that were competing for empire and they were imperialists and they weren't as well known as the British Empire, of course, or as powerful, but they had this area like which we call today Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Indochina, right? So why do you think it was in the notes for the mid 50s if we didn't really talk about it other than saying the French had control of it and now they don't? Do you think something significant is going to happen in world history / U.S. history based on the French losing control of this area known as Indochina? Anybody? Something you all heard of. What was the result of the French losing control? Yeah, Vietnam War, right? The French losing control there led to this power struggle, which led to North and South Vietnam, which led to communists against the South who were trying to resist that communist aggression. Number 4 across. Ben, the theory proposed by Eisenhower. Why is it called the domino theory?
Is it something about communism?
It certainly is.
Wasn't it like communism was started in one country, it spread?
Yes. So the idea that giving you the picture of dominoes falling one after another as one small country. Oh, what's the big significance? I mean, Jaden, why about whether North Vietnam or this little sliver in Southeast Asia becomes communist? Why should we be concerned about that? Eisenhower says, look, this is how it's going to work. As the communists take one small place at a time, Korea, North Vietnam, it's just going to keep going and progressing till the next thing you know, the whole world's been dominated, right? Number 7 across. Trey, the university that Eisenhower headed before he became president, Columbia University, a very prestigious university in America. And that was in there. Why? Basically just to show, hey, this Eisenhower guy is a very popular person. Everybody wanted to be associated with Dwight David Eisenhower. I like Ike because we found out that the Democrats thought maybe to run for them in 48. 50th state, Riley. Hawaii, right? What was 49? Alaska. So both became a state in 1959. 10 across. What do we call those Southern Democrats? Dana?
Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dixiecrats. Why are they like a special group of people? And I say special very loosely.
What?
Like, why is there such a thing as, instead of just Democrats, they're Southern Democrats? Or so then we give them this nickname Dixiecrats. Like they have some, there's something unique about them. You remember? Can you put together everything we've talked about that would tell that you'd be able to think these Democrats in the South were different than all the rest? How were they different?
Because they, yeah.
Anybody?
They're racist.
Okay, that has a lot to do with it. I mean, you can just say they had this idea that this is our South way. Number 12, Dwight's VP. Drew, you remember who Dwight Eisenhower's VP was? This guy goes on to become Anybody? Yeah,
Nixon.
Nixon. Richard M. Nixon goes on to become a, well, very famous or infamous president. Oh, by the way, where was Nixon from? California. Kind of a, Noel, do you remember? Why is that a big deal that seems like a lot of vice presidents lately have been from California.
To win over California
Why?
because it's been from their state.
And what about their state?
It's their state. They like their state
Okay, well, why would that be such an important place to win over?
because it's big and growing.
Yeah, growing is the word, right? It's not near what it is. Back then, it's not near what it is today, but it's still one of the larger states population-wise, right? You didn't mean geographically. Blank versus blank of education. Go ahead, Isaac.
Brown versus Board of Education.
What about it?
He wanted to,
He?
or no, wait, was Brown not a dude?
Well, it was a girl, but yeah, the dad. Go ahead.
Okay, well, they wanted to desegregate schools and make them.
And anybody remember what the Supreme Court's decision was? Was it a split decision? It was unanimous. It was unanimous. So finally, in 1954, the United States, through the Supreme Court, got it right, so to speak, and said that this idea what was the idea that was dominating the way we thought before Brown versus Board of Education? Come on, pay attention. There was a phrase, words, and Brown versus Board of Education put that to rest. They said, listen, you've been using this excuse for segregating people according to race for like almost 100 years now. In 86, it was actually a Supreme Court case where they said blank but blank. Yeah, separate but equal. And they said, we all know that's hogwash. We all know that de facto, no matter what the law is, you're not treating people equally. Right? So we had to put it into next containment plan. Barbie.
Was that, Marshall?
That was the Marshall Plan, named after Secretary of State Marshall. Jamin, condemned Soviet spies.
Rosenberg.
The Rosenbergs. What happened to them? What was their fate?
They was taken prisoner.
How was it done?
Killed.
How?
Execution.
How? Execution by electrocution. I think I even threw, I don't know if I said it in this class, but I threw in a kind of a morbid little trivia that Mrs. didn't work first time. Did I tell you that? Mrs. Rosenberg's initial jolt didn't do the job. Yikes.
It didn't work. That's very Dang.
Okay, fired by Truman. Who was fired by Truman, Jaden? Douglas MacArthur, the great general from World War II. Riley, how could you fire one of your greatest generals in the middle of a war? No, he's General MacArthur. He's not stupid. No, he's very smart. I don't know if you're going to get to the answer. Or
I'm not.
just-
I'm just.
on the filibuster.
She's college.
Jake, why? Why would you fire one of your best generals right in the
Who fired Truman?
middle?
What war was it?
Korea.
Was it like a war crime or something?
Scott?
He wouldn't listen.
You got it in the bag.
What do you mean with listening?
He wanted to keep pushing the 38 paragraph.
No,
Pick on David.
not really, kind of, but not really. I mean, what do you mean he wouldn't listen? You wanted to keep pushing. David?
Didn't he have like different opinions?
Okay, is it okay, Riley, is it okay if people in high authority, like, you got a president who's the chief, and you got a great general, is it okay if they have different opinions? They don't have to think exactly the same, do they? So, David, was it just that he had a different opinion? What happened that would lead to him getting fired? Listen, I hope that they all came together and not everybody was like thinking the exact same thing, right? I mean, I hope you would come together and people say, well, we gotta look at this angle, this angle. That's what it's supposed to be like. That's why you have more than one person in charge.
Use the word subjugation.
Well, not subjugation, but coordination. That's a big word, John. Coordination. That means, Riley, that MacArthur, if you're saying he was stupid because he should have never gone public with his disagreement with Truman, is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Who's up? Serenity, I think. Blank of peace.
Adams.
Yeah. And what was the point to that speech? It's called Atoms of Peace. Why would he give such a speech shortly after World War II?
Something to do with the bomb.
Or, yeah, but,
Or
or not to do with the bombs. David,
We can use nuclear power without blowing people up.
Serenity, that atomic power that we harnessed that enables us to use those weapons can be used for peaceful means. We can use that for clean, efficient energy. Imagine that we could use that technology that we used that was encapsulated in that bomb, however big it was, not even that big, and we can light up New York City. We don't need any more pollution into the air. We can light up cities with just harnessing that energy. Wouldn't that be great? And from that project. Jake, Western European Alliance,
NATO,
NATO. You remember what it stands for?
North America,
Not North America. Anybody?
Atlantic
North Atlantic
Treaty
Treaty.
Organization.
Good job, Jake.
Oh, I genius. Go Jake.
Seth, the blank highway system. What's the big deal? I mean, other than, gentlemen, please. Let me change the question, Seth. First of all, who was president when it was implemented? Eisenhower. And what was one of the reasons that was given for convincing the country that this highway system is needed? As far as national security strategy, because Eisenhower, general. We would use these roads to connect what? If we're going to keep our country safe, it would be good to have this incredible interstate web of roads that we'd be able to connect military bases, right? They used in the video Air Force bases. We would be able to have, if something was to happen within our soil, on our soil, that we'd be able to maneuver in a much greater fashion, right? And there was a prediction that the number of cars on American roads from 1950s to 1970s were almost double. So what are we going to do with all these people that are starting to cause congestion on our highways that we have? What else do we remember about that system? Anybody remember the trivia things about the system and the numbers that
Yes.
are applied?
Was it even numbers are east to west,
Even numbers, east and
and
west.
then odd numbers are north and south.
And then what about the numbers themselves? Smaller numbers, larger numbers,
Smaller would be lower.
and small in the west. Well, let's keep going. Does anybody know the main interstate that connects that goes down the whole west coast? It's Interstate 5, I-5. And what's the name of the interstate that connects the east coast? 95. Very good. The blank scare, David. What's red? What's that?
Communism.
It's the color we associate with communism. Have you ever seen the Russian flag? Have you all seen the Russian flag?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll have to put
In
that up.
Rocky Four,
In Rocky 4, there you go. There is value in watching movies.
first time I ever saw it.
Polio vaccinator,
Jonas Salk.
Jonas Salk.
Big and red.
What was special about his vaccination?
It was inactive
Yeah.
polio.
Yeah, that was a big deal because up to that point, they were giving people liquid active polio in such a small amount that the hope was the body would be able to easily overcome it, even though it was a living virus, and that would make them immune. So Salk came up with the idea of, hey, we don't have to take that big a risk. We can give people the inactive, dead virus. The body will still be able to recognize the makeup of that virus so that next time that pathogen enters our body, boom, our body will be ready for it. By the way, just saying that, isn't that incredible, your design? Do you know that you're losing, I think just in the time I started talking about this, I don't know how many 10,000 cells that are replenishing. And as your cells die off and get regenerated, they're still going to remember what they learned as far as cells are going to have the same information that the cells that died had. Is that fascinating, Ian? Isn't it? I think it is. Now let's go to, they controlled North Korea. Who did? Who controlled North Korea?
Communists.
Yes. Led by what country? What country would have been most involved in controlling North Korea? The Russians, Soviets. The 38th parallel. Trade. Between which two places? North and South. It's Truman. And why is it an exclamation? All the polls, all of the political common sense thinking, how can he win? The Democrats are split in three, especially in the South. The Republicans have the governor of New York and, well, California. They've got both coasts covered. Truman desegregated this. Caleb, what part of our society did Truman desegregate?
The military.
The military. I would say it's about time, wouldn't you? I mean, we had just gone through 2 world wars that black people played a big part in securing America and the world's freedom. Don't you think it's time to say that, they can share the same bunks and whatever as white soldiers? Kind of ridiculous that it took that long. French control in Southeast Asia ended here. This was the place where the French control was lost, and Indochina is going to be separated into different entities. Yeah, Dien Bien Phu. Truman, party in opposition to civil rights. Someone said, I think Jake said I was taking a shot here. I wasn't. But it leads to further discussion that we don't really have time to do now, but maybe later. Which party was in staunch opposition to all of the changes we see resulting in civil rights legislation? There are 2 parties. Which one was against it, Trey? The Democrats. It's a fact. Next. Soviet answer to NATO. The Soviets saw that Western Europe and America were forming this huge alliance. They're like, well, we got an answer to that. It's called the Warsaw Pact. They meet in Poland and they say, we're going to have our block of countries that if there's any of them in need, that we will rally together as well, the Warsaw Pact. Refused to give up seat. The famous, what was her name, John? What was that woman's name on the bus? She just wouldn't give up her seat. You remember? Seth? Rosa Parks. Russian satellite. Dina, what was the name of that Russian satellite?
Sputnik.
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 What's the big deal, Dina? Why is that such a big deal? Why are we 60-some years later like, man, Sputnik was a big deal?
Because the Russians were the ones that sent it up before us.
Yeah.
And then,
How could Russia, backwards Russia, beat us into space? We are so much better than them. You know what I'm saying, John? The Russians, here's us, America, most prosperous country in the world. We got all this technology. We're the most educated. We've got these cities that are just boom. And we're so industrial. Russia, aren't they just mostly backwoods farmers still? With the one in the video, they can't even make a refrigerator, and they're putting a satellite in space before us. That's crazy. Crazy talk. Created July 1958. Speaking of space, what was created in July 19... Oh, I saw you perk up back there, John. What was created in July 1958? The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, better known as NASA. Truman didn't trust him. Wait. Number 2 down. Okay. Truman didn't trust him. Scott, the Russians. Nazi war crimes tried there. The city is famous for one thing in history, and that is where post-World War II, the trials took place to put all of these men that were guilty of their atrocities, especially upon the Jewish people. This city in Germany is Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trials. Cuban revolutionary. January 1st, 1959, Cuba went from tourist destination for many Americans, tropical, beautiful island of Cuba, got transformed into a communist state led by Jamin. Who led that revolution? It wasn't led by Jamin. He's much smarter than that.
Castro.
Fidel Castro. Dwight's nickname, I like Ike. And finally, what industry did Truman say, you know what? I've had enough of this haggling between the owners and the workers. I'm coming in. We're going to take over until we get this thing resolved. It was the Riley steel industry. Notice that the test got postponed till Friday. That just gives Caleb less excuse, less explanation for anything less than excellent.